What is up, guys? My name is Matt from Magic the Greatening, and today I got the first Hour of Devastation deck tech for you on my channel. It's going to be Mono Blue Sphinx Budget. Before I jump right into it, because I'm very excited about this deck, the deck is about, depending on what Unesh's price will be, it'll range between $20 and $30. This video is being recorded and released before the official release of Hour of Devastation. We have all the spoilers for all the cards. I've been playtesting for about a week or so, and this deck is by far the one I'm most excited about. Let's get right into it. I always forget to say this, guys. Go ahead and vote for next Hour of Devastation deck tech. I know I had 3 other decks I wanted to release, but Hour of Devastation came out and I got super busy the past week. But anyway, go ahead and vote for one of the next 4 deck techs from Hour of Devastation you want to see next on my channel. Top right corner, eye icon. Okay, now let's get into it. All right, let's start with the creatures, and we don't have a single creature under 5 mana, and there's a reason for it. We're going to be playing 4 copies of Glyph Keeper, 3 copies of Guardian of Tazim, and 4 copies of Jwar Avenger. Alright, so these are the lowest of the low curve. Glyph Keeper is probably one of the stronger cards in the deck. Very cheap playset, only costs you about $1. Very hard to get rid of if it resolves. Also has Embalm, which is very, very key here. Guardian Tazim is probably our weakest Sphinx in a deck. A 5-mana 4/5 flying. Okay, whenever a land enters, if it's an island, you tap a creature they control and it doesn't untap. I mean, if it's any land, but if it's an island, they don't untap during the next untap step. Jwar Avenger is probably one of the stronger Sphinxes in the deck, and we will get into why. The search cost is huge with this guy. We can make him a 1-mana 3/3 Sphinx, no problem in this deck. So, wanted to play the full 4 of him. Alright, let's get to the last 2 creatures and the artifacts we're playing, all in right here in this sitting. So we're going to be playing 3 copies of Sphinx of the Final Word, 4 copies of Unesh, Criopshinx Sovereign, and 4 copies of Kefnet's Monument. Yeah, we're main boarding 3 copies of Sphinx the Final Word. This can be a 4-mana Sphinx of the Final, a 4-mana 5/5 hexproof that can't be countered, and instants and sorcery spells you control can't be countered. We're main boarding 13 instants and sorceries, and our entire sideboard is instants and sorceries. So this card is very, very strong. Also, kind of goes with a theme that our Sphinxes are going to be untouchable this entire game. Glyph Keeper is very hard to get rid of and keep off the board. Sphinx of the Final Word does the same thing. Unesh is the reason this deck even exists. It's a new card from Hour of Devastation. We only have 2 cards from Hour of Devastation here, but they're both very powerful. So Unesh says he's a 6-mana 4/4 flying, which is pretty bad. But he says Sphinx spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. That's pretty strong. Whenever Unesh or another Sphinx enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, put one in your hand, the other into your graveyard. Whenever you play Sphinx, it's like basically you're drawing 2 cards. You know, unless they separate into a pile of 3 cards and 1 card, and then you draw. It's like a Fortune's Favor whenever you play a Sphinx, but all the cards are face up, and you like choose what goes in your hand. It's absolutely insane. Like, I can't tell you how strong this card actually is. I had to play the full 4. I want to see this at all times. We're drawing so many cards with this deck, the legendary rule is not going to really matter. You're going to end up, discarding down to hand size. So you can just discard this if you need to. So that is very strong. And then Kefnet's Monument kind of goes with the theme of Guardian of Tazim, where it taps guys. But the only reason we're playing this is to make our guys cost 1 less, so we can have 4-mana Sphinx of the Final Word. We can have 1-mana Jwar Avenger. Actually, that has to be with the Unesh out. So basically, it's kind of a combo deck if you think about it, because 1 turn you'll play your Unesh, and if it stays out an entire turn, they pass the turn back to you. You are going to be rapidly playing Sphinx after Sphinx after Sphinx, and all of a sudden your board went from a 4/4 flyer to about 5 or 6 Sphinxes that are all flying, and they'll just concede there. Very, very strong. Kefnet's Monument is a definite no-brainer in this deck. I know it's a legendary artifact. We're playing a full 4 of that too. Some of you may be complaining about the legendary rule stuff, but I need to see this at all times. I do not care. If it gets removed, there's things like a braid, right, where it says, you know, it's the one in a red instant that just came out in our Devastation. Deal 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. It's going to be a very popular card. I've already seen it a lot in playtesting. And I want to have Kefnet's Monument out at all times. So that is our artifacts and creatures. So we have a lot of ways of making our Sphinxes cost a lot less. But how are we going to get to that turn 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stage without dying? Well, our instants and sorceries, actually, we're not playing any sorceries. Our instants are going to help with this. We're going to be playing 3 copies of Hieroglyphic Illumination, 4 copies of Negate, 4 copies of Scatter to the Winds, and 2 copies of Supreme Will. Okay, so I know we're already having a lot of card draw because Unesh is insane card draw value. But Hieroglyphic Illumination, if you don't have Kefnet's Monument or you don't have Unesh in your hand and you really need to draw something important, this can help. Also can just cycle out for a mana, draw another card, freshen up your hand early in the game. That's very good. Negate can help us keep Planeswalkers off the board while we're trying to set up. It can keep our Sphinxes we do put out alive like Unesh. And yeah, that's basically it. And then Scatter to the Winds. Originally, I was like playtesting this with Disallow, but you can replace it with like a Scatter to the Winds or a Cancel or whatever you have that's pretty cheap. If you do have the Disallow, throw it in. But this is the cheap option, and it has Awaken 3 for 6 mana. So I mean, it's probably one of the better counter spells that are cheap. And then Supreme Will is another counter spell or card draw. It says choose 1 counter target spell unless controller pays 3, which is at 3 mana. And then look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest in the bottom. So it's a very versatile card. Wanted to play at least the 2 of. It's pretty strong. Let's just go right over the lands and onto the sideboard. So our lands is 20 islands, 3 Desert of the Mindful, which is the new desert. It enters tapped. You can tap it for a blue, and you can cycle it out. And then 2 Blighted Cataracts. Pretty simple standard stuff for a cheap budget deck. Let's get to the sideboard. All right, sideboard time. We are going to be playing a whole bunch of, counter spells and stuff. So we're playing 3 Brawl's Expertise in the sideboard against aggro. I know it's a 5 mana sorcery speed card, but keeping, clear off their biggest stuff, keeping them off the board. Brawl's Expertise can help with that. We're going to be playing 4 copies of Commit to Memory, also in the sideboard. Mostly to bounce stuff back to their hands. If they're playing aggro, again, this can help. It's a non-land permanent, Planeswalkers, anything, right? This can help. Also, the memory half is very good against mill because it shuffles your library back, or your graveyard back into your library, and you draw another 7 cards. So, yeah, pretty much a mill deck's worst nightmare. Obviously, they're going to be playing Graveyard Hate for cards like this. However, we kind of do need a plan against mill other than just counterspells. And speaking of counterspells, our last 8 cards in the sideboard are going to be 4 copies of Dispel and 4 copies of Void Shatter. Void Shatter to keep things out of the graveyard, maybe a Scatter to the Winds isn't going to help because they're playing zombies, stuff that recur. Void Shatter can help with that. And Dispel is good against other control matchups because it's a 1-mana counter target instant spell. Takes things out like Pull from Tomorrow, other counter spells, Glimmer, Genius, Hieroglyphic Illumination, anything that you don't want resolving, even kill spells. So Dispel is in here against control matchups. What upgrades could you make to the deck? And it's actually not too much upgrades. I would switch out the Scatter to the Winds with the Disallow. We've already been over that. That's the first thing I would do. I would take out the 2 Supreme to Wills and put in 2 Pull from Tomorrows, and then take out a Hieroglyphic Illumination and throw in another. Either you can throw in like one of the Commit to Memories from the sideboard in, or throw in like another Guardian to Zim or another Sphinx to the Final Word. Just basically Pull from Tomorrow and Disallow because they're the strongest blue cards that in control and help us draw a lot of cards and stuff like that. So those are the only actual upgrades I'd make to the deck, and this deck is really fun by itself. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed our Devastation deck techs. Ooh, I am excited to show you some of the stuff I have cooked up. Don't forget to put suggestions down in the comments. If you liked the video, you enjoyed it, you enjoyed watching it, you thought the editing was good or anything like that, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you are new, and I hopefully will see you in that next deck tech. Peace.